Welcome to the 21st century, the age of innovation and technology. One of the most intricate but common pieces of technology is the phone. I mean, I bet each and every one of you has one of these handy little devices. And nowadays, it would be a little strange if you didn't. And I believe you could walk into a room, look around, and see everybody on their phone, seemingly not talking to one another. But that's the exact opposite from the truth. Actually, every day, 18 billion messages are sent. I mean, that's not even including the renowned, most popular social media apps like Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I mean, these little pieces of hardware are absolutely amazing. I mean, just a couple of decades ago, something this size would hold about 1 megabyte of information. But this right here holds 75 gigabytes of information. Speaking of information, this has a little handy feature known as the World Wide Web, or the Internet. And just at the tip of your fingers, you have access to almost limitless knowledge. And more recently, we entered something called the zettabyte era, which is about 1 sextillion bytes of information, or 1,000 times 10 to the power of 21 gigabytes of information. And of course, every single year that about doubles the size. And in 2019, the estimated global traffic transferred between one another was about 2 zettabytes of information. Well, how do you get a hold of all that information? Well, it's pretty simple. You just type in what you want to know. I mean, I just typed in how do you write a persuasive speech, and I got about 1 million search results. And in 2014, there were over 1 billion websites. I mean, if you wanted to write down all this text on paper that you could find on the internet, it would take about 305 billion pages to write down. And that's only including the text information. The amount of information that you can gain just at the tip of your fingers is nearly limitless.
Phones have many advantages in our modern world. However, there is a stigma attached to the device itself. Many advantages of the phone is quick and easy access to the world's biggest library, the internet. Right? It's something we use every day. Amber Alerts shows up on our phones. It's something that helps many communities about what's happening in an area, such as kidnappings and natural disasters. The list goes on from there. Phones have helped millions, if not billions, of people interact with one another from several parts of the world. An example of this would be me talking to a friend in Japan just to talk about our day, or me talking to my next door neighbor about school. And to put this very simply, it's very easy for me to talk to anyone you want in seconds, right? If I have a phone, and if you have a phone, this could apply very easily. Often people look at their phones for hours a day, resulting in a detriment in their short-term memory. This is a common argument that is anti-phone usage. And to dispel this, there was an observation done for this reason. While phones and the internet in general is harming our short-term memory, I believe the benefits outweigh the negatives, right? Since the average short-term memory is around 7 plus or minus, a little gap there for bits of information, and this would be contrasted with, as opposed to a younger person who was around 5 plus or minus bits. This is very insignificant. This was done by Kenneth, and how many texts do people send per day in his little procedure there. The disparity between the bits of information are negligible because looking at our phones is not significant enough for us to worry about. To better illustrate this little significance that's had between the bits of information is very little. At the same time, a lot. Like comparing a phone and a pencil. A pen and a pencil. They both accomplish the same thing, although there exists a little difference in how it is applied, such as a pencil is used to sign checks and a pencil is used to generally for school, art supplies, and creative ideas. Both can be used differently, but at the same time, in the same way.
The positive effects of cell phones is much greater than the negatives, and the generation millennials continues to prove that every day. Over the past 50 years, millennials are responsible for creating the largest societal, digital, and cultural reset. According to the Pew Research Center, a group that focuses on social and demographic trends, Millennials are much smarter and better educated than the previous generations. When it comes to technology, more than 9 in 10, 93% of millennials own smartphones. This is drastically different than the 90% of Gen Xers, 68% baby boomers, and 40% of the silent generation. So why is there such a large difference between each generation? The mindset and opinions on the effects of technology and social media as a whole. In 2014, a report from Lab 42 stated that over 80% of millennials believe technology will positively change the world. This is much different than the previous generation's opinions, in which they believe technology is time-consuming and ineffective. So much so that 40% predicted a negative outcome of technology, adding, "The young wired brains will be easily distracted and move away from deep thinking capabilities and face-to-face social skills." However, despite these opinions, the narrative of phones and millennials in today's society is changing. Why? Because millennials care about changing the world and improving what we already have. In an article by Inc.com titled 6 Things Millennials Have Taught Us, it is written that millennials never settled for less. Not to say other generations have settled for what life handed them, but more so that millennials push the boundaries of the unknown. Although technology and the overuse of mobile devices may have been once seen as a negative thing, according to the previous generations, millennials have single-handedly created an entire industry and economy surrounded by the use of technology. And it's in the palm of anyone's hand. They seek to shift the narrative and stigma about the overuse of technology and proven living in a technological lifestyle is beneficial and a productive thing that can continue to grow into the next generations. It's the idea of working smarter, not harder. It's no longer homebodies or a generation with no work ethic. It's providing different outlets, new ways of thinking, new ideas, and better opportunities for
Cell phones allow for the increased social interaction between groups of people via outlets such as social media or online video games. Social media outlets allow its users to reach out and find people who share their common goals and common interests. A couple examples of this could be Facebook Marketplace, where people are buying and selling stuff. Instagram, where people are posting pictures of their adventures and you get to compare your adventures to other people. Or even Pinterest, where you can come up with different stuff and compare it with other people. Now, that's social media's way. Video games are a little bit different. With video games, usually it's a bunch of people working together to reach a common goal. Now, people working together creates relationships and therefore makes friends and memories. This is one very, very big way of social interaction. A local news article by CBS News came out in 2015 stated that 57% of all males who have played online video games have made at least one friend, while 78% of all females who have social media accounts have made at least one friend via social media. Cell phones help connect people in the world. Cell phones help connect people throughout the world and help people communicate when they have trouble communicating in person. This is just another reason why cell phones are a positive impact on today's society, and just another reason that adds on they help over harm. All in all, cell phones have an overwhelming impact on today's society, and their benefits outweigh their disadvantage. Cell phones allow the user to have limitless knowledge at their fingertips. They allow for the user to have increased social interaction between big groups of people, and they have made themselves into an essential part in today's society. Cell phones are the biggest means of communication right now, and biggest means of communication and social interaction. So next time you walk into a room and everyone's on their phone, maybe pull out your own phone and join them, and you can make some more friends of your own. Now I'm going to play a video by a YouTuber named Alex Ruins Everything. It kind of sums up all the counter arguments that we would face. Thank you for listening. My name is Tegan Crump, and this is Group 5's Persuasive Speech.
Remember the good old days? Instead of isolating ourselves in our newspapers, we used to talk to each other and just make up the news.
I happen to understand that fellow. He's simply longing for an era of refinement and culture. People used to read books. No one reads books anymore.
That old cliche is completely false. More Americans read books today than did in the 1950s.
Huh.
And by the way, when books were invented, snobs like you hated on them too. One intellectual even thought that too many books would harm the mind.
Plus, this confusing and harmful abundance of books.
That's ridiculous. If you don't read books, how will you know how smart and superior you are?
Well, according to Socrates, you aren't. The father of philosophy himself complained about the ultimate corrupting modern invention, the written word.
The written word creates forgetfulness in the learner's souls. Back in my day, we memorized and recited our lessons. Reading is for the lazy and the stupid.
No, my personal identity.
It's okay, he was wrong. Just like you're wrong about the internet.
No, things are worse now. I can prove it. People used to communicate with each other, not like these solipsists.
I'm sorry, what do you think people use these devices for? Literally, all they're doing is communicating. He's keeping in touch with a friend from college. She's writing an email to a fellow researcher in Poland.
I'm cyberbullying a child.
Okay, they're not all winners, but the point is, we're all communicating more now than we ever were before. We weren't better people back before we had smartphones or the internet. We were the same lazy, curious, social people we've always been. The only difference is now we have instantaneous access to all knowledge and communication. I mean, how is that anything other than a tremendous social good? Instead of pining for an imagined past, we should feel immensely lucky to live in the magnificent present.